It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So my friends, my wife and I are maybe shopping, grocery store or going somewhere, and people will come up to me and say, Sam, what's going on with this election? What's happening with COVID-19? Have you spoken to Lou Barletta? What does Lou Barletta say? So it's been like this for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So finally I said, look, the only way I'm going to find out what Lou Barletta says is get Lou Barletta on the show to see where it really is happening with this election status and what's happening in the state of Pennsylvania, COVID-19. It's crazy, as we all know. We don't know what to do, how to do it, who do we believe, etc. We hope that the health authorities are telling us the right things. So I called former Congressman Lou Barletta and said, Lou, I need you to come on the show to talk about a few things. Thanks for coming on the show.
Good to be here, Sam.
You're a busy guy, aren't you?
A little bit.
Yeah, I know. You're busier now than you were when you were in Congress.
I'm working harder now than I was in Congress, yeah.
All right, so Lou, the election's over with, okay? And some people, that you talk to say, look, Sam, enough's enough, all right? Maybe Trump's upset about not winning the election. Why go through all this stuff, when they're saying that Joe Biden was the victor here? How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, Sam, we were a divided country before the election, and if it was possible, I think we're more divided now than we were there. I mean, over 70-some million people voted for Donald Trump. We don't know how many people voted for Joe Biden. And I think that's what the problem is that many people feel that there were so many irregularities in this election in so many swing states that it shouldn't be ignored. And I don't think our country will ever come together behind our president, whoever the president is, if we don't get to the bottom of whether or not this election was fair election. And not only for this election, but I think for elections moving forward. So people right now are very disappointed in many of our elected officials who are not standing up on both sides, not only Democrats but Republicans as well. They have a right, the 70-some million people who voted for Donald Trump have a right to know that this election was fair.
Well, everyone says we need proof, okay? Of course, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court shot everything down. Of course, being Democrat, I don't think that was going to be a shock to anybody. But however, there could be validity there, all right, as to saying, the election result is a result of voters, not lawyers, okay? Where do they start getting this proof that there was fraud and there was, all these things happening?
Well, Sam, they have already shown the American people so much evidence of proof of fraud. I mean, myself alone, I've had calls of people who said they know of people who have collected ballots in nursing homes and filled them out for them. We saw it so many times, dead people voting. We could go on in the evidence that has been shown, although the mainstream media wants to say, well, where's the evidence? Even though they turn their head and close their eyes and say, and cover their ears and say, we don't hear it, we don't see it, so there was none. There's plenty of evidence that has shown that this election was flawed. And not only the evidence, Sam, but just the circumstances surrounding this whole election. Why do you throw poll watchers out if you're not doing something wrong? Why do you put cardboard over the windows so nobody could see what you're doing? Tractor trailers missing. I mean, we saw all of the things. There needs to be explanations. And if at the end they could explain all of these reasons why they didn't let poll watchers watch, why Democrats in some counties in Pennsylvania were allowed to correct their ballots, but Republicans were not in other counties, people deserve to have that investigated. And here in Pennsylvania, not only in Pennsylvania, in the entire country, the Republican Party is the party of Donald Trump. It has grown because of Donald Trump. He has brought more people into that party, working men and women, which the Republican Party didn't have. And remember what he campaigned on, the forgotten men and women who didn't have a voice, who nobody stood up for them. Isn't it amazing how fast our politicians forgot about those people again, who believe that it doesn't matter if you voted for Donald Trump. You don't matter. It doesn't count. We're moving on. This is over. There's not enough evidence, and that's people on both sides of the aisle. I think there'll be a major backlash to Republicans who don't stand up and at least respect the people, the 70-some million people, over 3 million people here in Pennsylvania that voted for Donald Trump. They expect those elected leaders to stand up and prove that this election was not stolen.
Where are they at? I mean, what all you're seeing again is, the mainstream media. Even if Trump says something, there's always something saying, well, even though he did this, or there's falsehoods here. If you're saying it's blatant fraud, I mean, that would be shocking to me as a United States citizen. In knowing if the law is not going to prevail or if it's only one-sided. Okay, that would be very shocking to me. I was watching Newsmax 640 up here. This is channel 640 up here, and they were showing some of the hearings. Okay, from the hearings that you see, I mean, and they're saying the same thing you're saying. Why is the blatant refusal of not accepting what is right? I mean, that's the thing that's scary, I think, here, Lou.
It is, and it's again where our elected officials are not listening to the people who put them in office. When you're in office, you have to remember why you're there and who put you there and who is your boss. And the boss is the people. And if the people are questioning, now listen, Sam, maybe at the end of this there wasn't enough fraud to have changed the election. Then so be it. Then we could come together as a country and we can move forward. But when we're getting to the point again where people in power, in offices who have the opportunity to do something, stay silent or ignore it, they're ignoring 70-some million people who will not just sit back. I mean, we have a right to know in Pennsylvania, not only for this election, but elections moving forward, if this was a fair election, if it was free and fair, and we could trust that my ballot will be counted, every ballot should be counted, and every illegal ballot should not be counted, and just to ignore it and say, well, there's not enough. How do we know there's not enough? Who could prove to me that this election wasn't taken away from Donald Trump? Just as I can't today prove to you that it was. But we have a right to know, and the American people want to know. And who's not listening? The people in offices who are not willing to have investigations. I think in Pennsylvania we should have hearings, having our own investigations. I want to know, at least at the end of the day, in Pennsylvania, all these irregularities were not enough to overturn this election. I don't believe it, but I can't prove it. And
why do you say that? Why do you say I don't believe that?
Well, Sam, I've been campaigning for over a year for Donald Trump in Philadelphia, particularly, and around the state. And when you see when you saw the excitement and the people and the amount of people who came out for Donald Trump, and Joe Biden didn't come out of his basement. How does Joe Biden do better in Philadelphia than Barack Obama did and Hillary Clinton? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense that many people, that he won by that margin. That Donald Trump, when we went to bed election night, had over 600,000 vote lead from the people that went to the polls and voted. But then all of a sudden, with the mail-in ballots, and that really is what I believe is the main problem in this election, were the mail-in ballots, which never should have happened here in Pennsylvania. All of a sudden, he not only loses a 600,000 vote lead, but then ends up, he's 100,000 votes behind. I just don't see how that happens, especially when you have so many people coming forward, telling you their stories of people who went to vote and were turned down because they said, you already voted. And they said, I've never voted. And they said, yeah, that we have a mail-in ballot from you, so you have to file a provisional. I mean, these so many stories, Sam. Why would we not want to get to the bottom of this? Why? What are they afraid of to bring this country together, to get to the bottom of all of this? And who would trust our elections again? Would you put your name on a ballot?
No.
I mean,
So here again, you were in Congress 8 years. You're one of the few that have been very close to Donald Trump, had many private conversations with him. You've flown in Air Force One. You know, he's called you many times during the night to discuss different things throughout the years. You know him as a person that is probably a great businessman. My question is that if he felt that he lost the election, he would just say, look, he would bow out gracefully, because I mean, unless there's an ego situation here that we're not aware of, but I think you know him better than that. I think he would say, look, you know, let this go, you know, I lost.
This would be more embarrassing to him if he knew he lost and he was just refusing to concede.
Yes.
You know, he has a great life waiting for him no matter what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't need to do this. He was doing this for the American people. But the thing that he'll be known best for is that he exposed so many things. I mean, he went to Washington to drain the swamp.
Yeah.
And he really showed us a lot of how deep that swamp is, whether it's in the Justice Department and the career politicians who are there. But then he also showed, you know, our mainstream media, how unfair, and they took their masks off and showed who they were. And now he's showing big tech. I mean, he has exposed so many things in our country, and unfortunately, worse of anything is that we now question whether we can have a free and fair election in the United States of America. This is not a banana republic. And the American people should not be forgotten again as they were before and told to shut up, the election's over, doesn't matter, we're moving on, Joe Biden's the president. Joe Biden is not the president. He was not certified, and they won't convince me until we investigate all these irregularities in these states that could have been won by Donald Trump. I'm not saying they were, but they can't tell me for sure that they weren't.
Well, he fought something that was, you know, people say is very, very difficult. He fought the Main Street media and, you know, exposed them for what they were. I always have a question, as I say, is that, you know, I think the media is to report both sides. I try to balance it off. I've invited Cartwright on this show a number of times. Either he's busy or something, but however, I try to balance it. When you're looking at the Main Street media, I've said this before, and I don't understand this, and I wish somebody would explain it to me. We're in the business of selling advertising. The only way this show exists is the people who sponsor the show. Our economy was doing extremely well, all right? More people working than ever, both Hispanic, African American, you name it. We were doing extremely well. The 401ks were people who are retired were doing extremely well. The guy had a moral value. He wanted to protect unborn babies. So why then would you not, if you're in the media, be fair? Not that you have to side with him, be fair and say, look, we sell advertising. If people do not work, they cannot buy what I'm advertising. So at least be fair, but you don't see that. You don't see that with a lot of Main Street media. I mean, I saw a picture at Times Magazine. It says, President Biden, our 46th president. Well, they already have him as on the front page of the Times Magazine. Now, if he is, fine, okay? But those are the things that go through my mind. I don't understand. I hate Trump. Okay, you hate Trump. But he took on a challenge of getting rid of a swamp that's been there for many, many years. Are the good old boys coming back?
Oh, they're coming back stronger than ever, you know, because, you know, in the end, they did exactly what they wanted to. From the day he came down that escalator, you know, they've been after him. 90-some% of negative media of everything that was covered about him. I don't know how the man got up and went to work every day with that kind of press constantly battering him. You know, the Russian collusion, I mean, you name it. They went after this man's family, but the country did very well. Obviously, we did very well. The economy came roaring back, but he exposed a dark side of our country. You know, the media would always, many times, pretend, or at least appear, that they were trying to be impartial. But we saw Donald Trump, where it wasn't that way. And as I said, once the curtain came down and we saw what we saw, our country is definitely shifting into this far left socialist type country where, again, where your powers and freedoms are being taken away from you, and government is getting more and more control of your life. I mean, this whole mail-in ballot, Sam, should never have happened. But think of what Governor Wolf did right here in Pennsylvania. After the legislature in 2019 okayed mail-in ballots, Governor Wolf expanded it and said, we're going to accept ballots 3 days after the election, as long as they're postmarked by Election Day. But even the postmark protection there really didn't come into play, because they then said, well, if there's not a postmark on it, we still have to accept the ballot. And oh, by the way, your signature doesn't have to match. So if the signature on this mail-in ballot with no postmark happens not to match your signature, you can sign Donald Duck if you want to, and they can't throw that ballot out. But yet, if you or I go to the poll on Election Day like we always did, they're going to look at my face, they're going to look at my identification, and they're going to make my signature. So why am I held at a higher standard to go in and do what we've done forever, go to a poll and vote?
So before I go to break, people will say, about anything. I like Sam Lesante, I don't like Sam Lesante. Okay. When people say, Lou, I just don't like Trump, what are they saying? What are some of the reasons why they say they don't like
his tweeting, they don't like his personality, they don't like that, the way he talks. They just don't like him. And I said this wasn't an election where Joe Biden won. 80 million people didn't come out because they love Joe Biden. This was an election. Listen, if you like Donald Trump, you love Donald Trump. The people who came out, many of them hate Donald Trump. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how well the country's doing. It doesn't matter, how many things. I mean, you look at our minorities, our African American unemployment, they're doing so much better. Our Hispanic population are doing so much better under Donald Trump. He put America first, and he gave a voice to those forgotten men and women who didn't have a voice and gave up on politics and gave up on Washington and Harrisburg. But Sam, what I'm seeing before my eyes is how fast these people are being forgotten again by people in office who just want to move on. Yeah. And I think there's going to be a big backlash in 2022.
Folks, I'm talking to former Congressman Lou Barletta, just bringing up the data, what's happening. I'm as troubled as you are, I think, what's happening. We just want to be fair. But government is controlling you. Look what's happening today. They're telling you what to do, where to go, no church services, shopping, whatever. They're telling you everything to do, okay? And I think it's going to get worse. When we come back, we'll discuss some of those issues. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7, SSPTV.com. All of our programs are there. Local neighborhood programming. No syndication, no paid programming. Everything is done here, letting you know what's happening in your backyard. Comcast 190 in Pottsville from 7 to 11 p.m. every day, and Wilkes-Barre and Mountaintop, Kingston area on Channel 92, 7 to 11 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday evenings. Talking to former Congressman Lou Barletta, we're talking about government taking over, okay? This COVID-19 thing is amazing, okay? All I can say is that, everybody certainly wants to be safe. We have a lot of conflicting reports, Lou. I wish there would be a majority of professional doctors and health people would say 90% of it agree on certain things. Right. The masks are one of them, whatever, okay? But you have mixed emotions here, and the government's telling you now what to do. Don't see your family, don't do this. And I'm sure there's a lot of suicides, there's a lot of marital problems, there's a lot of abuse that's happening, but I don't know if they're paying attention to this.
Yeah, first of all, we want to thank our healthcare providers, those on the front lines who every day go to work and do everything they can to keep us safe. I mean, I don't think we could thank them all for all they do. That being said, Sam, the argument is, follow the science, follow the science. But yet they can't show me any science that backs where a governor has the right to sit behind his desk and say, you're closed, you're open. You're closed, you're open. You can do this, you can't do that. And then these governors around the country break their own rules. They go to dinners, they do what they want, but they're telling the American people what they can. The control that they've gotten over this COVID in the past year is just amazing. When they first shut down our economy, and we never saw anything like that. We never saw government saying you can't open up your business, you can't go to work. But that was they did the hardest thing first. Once they do it once, Sam, they've opened that door where, just like that, Governor Wolf can this week decide who's going to be open and who's going to be closed, what businesses will go out of business, what families won't have any income, won't have any money. And then those problems start. Where's the science behind how many people became alcoholics, or how many divorces? How many people will never get out of the hole that was dug just because a governor decides that your business, because you're a small business, can't open, but yet these big box stores can all stay open. You won't get in the Walmart parking lot. It'll be jammed after they close down all the other businesses and other large box stores, pushing people into there because they need to go buy things. But yet a small business person who could control their customers and their business and keep people safe. Now, Sam, I appreciate that Governor Wolf cares about me, but I can tell you my daughters care about me more. And they're not going to do anything to get my wife or myself sick. Or are we going to do anything to get our grandchildren sick? Because I care about them a little more than I care about Governor Wolf. People are smart enough to know how to take care of themselves. And if you had a business, you're going to do what you can so that your customers feel safe. They are not smarter than us, and I don't believe they have the right to tell what businesses we're going to destroy and close, but yet we're going to allow everyone else go in these big box stores. There's thousands of people in there. Everybody's touching the same objects. Where's the science that you're safer there than if I were to go into a local florist and buy flowers for my deceased parents in a cemetery? I can't do it, but I can go into a big box store and do it. It just makes no sense. I'm not buying it. I don't think they have any science behind it, and government has just controlled your life a little bit more, and now it's easier to do every time.
Well, the governor, he has certain powers, but I mean, you have a Senate and you have Congress, legislator. How do they? Well, don't they have the right to override what he says?
Well, I would certainly. I'm sure they are going to try to fight it. But if he can veto whatever they can do, and they can't override the veto, then unfortunately, the governor has the power to do that. And it's a big concern because part of one of the issues in this election was this far left leaning people in Washington that want to turn this into a socialist country, and part of it is controlling what you can do and what you can't do. But all the people that have been hurt by the last shutdown, they may never get out of that hole, and they won't survive another one. And these are families, these are people. You're not only hurting the business owner, but you're hurting those that work there, that depend on it, that need that income, and of all times at Christmas time. And what happens, Sam? Are they keeping us safer by shutting little businesses down when we're just all going to go into one place now? We're going to go into bigger box stores. There's no science behind what they're doing.
Well, you would think that when they instituted all the masks and stuff like that, however they say viruses come and then after, some people say then they mutate or whatever, and then they go away or whatever. So we hope with the vaccine coming out, hopefully. That'll do something. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously we're going to do everything we can. I want to be safe. I want to, I don't want to get anyone sick, and I don't want to get sick, and I certainly, I don't want to get my family sick. I think people are smart enough to know not to put themselves in those situations and to protect each other, because, if I go and I don't have a mask on and I get sick, I don't want to get my family sick. But let me just say this, I do think that government has a place if you are not following CDC guidelines and businesses are totally ignoring it and putting people in a bad situation. That's where I think government needs to step in. But don't punish everybody. Don't punish people who want to make sure that their employees and their customers are safe. And I can use my own judgment whether or not I feel safe going in there or not. This is America. This was a country built on freedom and personal responsibilities, not the government telling us, everyone hide under your bed because we feel like that's the best thing to do, but yet there's going to be different rules for different people, different businesses. I don't think that's the American way.
Your prediction on this situation with Trump and Biden?
I haven't given up, Sam. I think that in the states that are still at question, some will go to the Supreme Court. Pennsylvania has a great case. Congressman Mike Kelly's case, I think, is a great case here where the legislature did not have the authority to pass mail-in ballots without a constitutional amendment to Pennsylvania's constitution. I think that's a great case there. I think there's enough in Georgia and Nevada. We'll see. But these courts and hopefully our legislators will get to the bottom of it. People want to know. They have a right to know. We should be doing our own investigations here so that people in Pennsylvania at least feel that this was a free and fair election. But I think at the end of the day, I have not given up that the election is over.
Well, Lou, I want to wish you and your family a Merry
Sam.
Christmas
Thank
and
you.
Happy New Year. Hopefully we'll all stay healthy.
Thank
and
you.
appreciate you coming on the show to bring us update. That's former Congressman Lou Barletta. Just an update what's happening. So you hear it yourself, people coming and saying, Sam, what does Lou think? So you heard what he thought. We'll see you next time.